Paul, we got an in-depth inside look into the story behind ChatGPT's potential on the way we work. And the takeaway is the way we all work is about to change in major ways thanks to ChatGPT. And few are actually ready for how fast this change is going to happen. And we say this because in a new TED Talk, OpenAI co founder and president Greg Brockman showed off the power and potential of the new ChatGPT plugins. So, these are the plugins that can help ChatGPT browse the internet and interact with third party services and applications. And the results are pretty stunning because we basically got a preview of AI agents that can take actions in the real world to help us with our work. In the talk, Brockman shows off some ways that knowledge workers will soon work hand in hand with machines and how this is going to start changing things months or even weeks from now, not years. This is a change that appears to be here. Now, Paul, when you watched this, what were some of the capabilities from this talk that he showed off that kind of jumped out at you as notable?
Well, first, I just thought I was watching this on Saturday morning, and I just thought it was a stunning contrast to what we had seen earlier in the week from Google when they did their 60 minute segment on with Bard, um, and the Fox thing with Elon, whatever that was. So again, like I don't know if people know my background, but I was a PR major, so I came out of college, out of the journalism school with a public relations degree, and spent the first 5 years of my career doing PR, crisis communications, media relations work, and then started my own agency. And we did some PR work. We didn't do a ton, but very early in my career, it was a lot of what I did. And that 60 minutes thing with Google, I mean, I love Google. Bard's going to probably be amazing, but that was really painful to watch. Like it was just a pure PR play. Sundar doesn't do interviews. And so just the fact that he was even there doing that interview was interesting. But then it was just like, I forget the guy's name that was doing the interview, Scott something. I don't watch 60 Minutes very often, so I don't know all the details. But um, it was as though he had never seen GPT 3 or 4. Like it was this stunning, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's doing this thing. And I get that he's probably trying to simulate how viewers would react to the technology, but it came across to me as like, did you not do research before you did this interview? Like, had you
Hmm.
never seen generative AI technology? Because there was nothing that Google showed in that demo on 60 Minutes that was anything new. It was just that Google was doing it with Bard, but like the tech was 6 months old to the average person who knew what they were looking at. So anyway, so I don't know. So the 60 Minutes thing was just painful. And I don't even want to get into the Fox thing with Elon. It was just this dystopian joke. And it was to distract from other stuff that was happening in the world and in Elon's week, and just really bad. So to watch this just pure demonstration of real world technology with real world use cases was kind of a breath of fresh air in a week of PR bluster in the industry. And like that was the first thing that jumped on me. The second is I think Greg should be in the public more. I think we've talked previously about Sam Altman and some of his, I guess his own personal statements about his weakness as like the front man for this whole thing,
Mhm.
and as a CEO, and maybe he lacks empathy toward the average person, is in his own kind of words from the Lex Freeman interview, where Greg just comes across as a very intelligent, technically minded person who has the ability to kind of explain in a very simple way how things are working, and I just feel it felt very authentic to me. And so if you haven't seen it yet, it's about a 15-minute TED Talk presentation followed by a 15-minute interview with Chris Anderson. And the whole thing just felt very real. And I just appreciated that after going through the week of what we had gone through. So with all that being said, I think that the when he started getting into actually showing ChatGPT live connected to the browser and connected to the plugins, and again, if you haven't heard our past episode or haven't like followed along with plugins, basically what's going to happen is in ChatGPT, you will have the ability to have these plugins that go out to different sites and enable you to get kind of real-time data out of those sites and then be able to take actions on them. So he showed the example of making a menu based on an image. He had the generative AI create an image of a meal and then use the AI to assess what were the food items within that image, and then used that to build a shopping list. And then, in theory, you could just check out and have those products available to you. So it was this whole incredible demonstration going from just a single prompt of, create a meal for me to I'm going to order the items that are in this image I created so I can make this meal. And then that was fascinating enough, but to me, the real powerful one is probably the most simple one, which was asking Excel to analyze data. And this is the one I've been hot on for years. It's like whether you use a business intelligence tool to create your charts and analyze your information, or you just have it built within your marketing platforms like HubSpot, for example, think about what it takes to get insights out of that data. Like in Excel, you have to learn how to run pivot tables. Like the average marketer has no idea how to build a pivot table. Like, and then even when you do, like I used to do this all the time, we would analyze research data. I would like spend 5 hours relearning how to use Excel and like maximize its value and the different, shortcuts and stuff. And then I wouldn't have to do it again for 6 months. And then I'd go back and be like, man, how do you build a pivot table again? And I would spend an hour relearning how to do this stuff just to get insights out of the data. And the example he showed was you just go in and say, find me this anomaly or find me this, forecast this or find that. And it does it, and then it builds charts on it. And then I thought the thing that was most interesting is he was looking at year over year data and he was comparing 2023 to 2022. Well, obviously, we only have 4 months of data in 2023. So the chart that it built showed a drop off. So he said, okay, project out the rest of 2023 based on that data. And it actually was then able to just go through and build an updated projection. So it understood exactly what it was asking, it delivered exactly what he wanted. And that to me was the one where you start to really see how this technology is going to be infused into everything. We talked about Microsoft 365 Copilot and Google Workspace, and you start to see how all of the things that the average knowledge worker does is going to be assisted in a really efficient way. So again, if just me going in and having to relearn how to run pivot tables and then how to run the analysis off of those pivot tables and then building the charts, like what he showed in a minute and a half, if I had wanted to do that myself as someone who has worked in Excel for 20 some years, I probably would have taken an hour or two because I
Mm.
would have had to have gone back and refigured out how to do it all, made all these decisions, figured out what I want to ask of it. And so just that is such a tangible demonstration of the kind of efficiency we're going to see gained by knowledge workers that I thought it was really, really well done and really simple.
So, talk to me a little bit more about the impact we might see here because you posted about this on LinkedIn and you mentioned that we're going to start seeing humans and machines working together, quote, not years from now, but months, maybe weeks from now. What led you to say that?
The plugins are real. That was what led me to say it. So I have the browsing plugin in ChatGPT right now, and I've had it for weeks, and it changes things. Like once you can, again, it's like I always kind of backtrack. I don't, how familiar are people with ChatGPT or how much they've experimented. But the problem with ChatGPT and other AI writing tools and language models right now is they make stuff up. So hallucination is the technical term for it. So to be able to connect to a browser where it can verify facts and cite the sources, or at least cite information that supports what was created by the language model, that's really interesting. But when you start adding these other plugins to connect to your, as a marketer, you can start to imagine being connected to a social media platform or a CRM platform or your email platform, where it can go and now not only extract information in real time based on a prompt or a question, but it can take action on your behalf based on this stuff. So once you see this and you realize, okay, well, as soon as they start turning these plugins on, we're all going to have access to this.
Mm.
Or as soon as Microsoft turns 365 Copilot on for everyone who has Microsoft, or as soon as Google turns on Google Workspace AI, this stuff is, it's not like there's some technological breakthrough that has to occur for the average knowledge worker to have access to this technology. The only thing that has to occur is these tech companies have to turn the features on that already exist. And if they decide to do that tomorrow, then you got access tomorrow.
Mm.
If it's a week from now, then you got access then. So that's why I'm saying, like, there's a chance it could be a few months. Like maybe they're going to run into some issues with the testing and realize, okay, we got to do some more work. But the tech exists already. It literally is just them turning it on and saying, okay, here, the first 100,000 users, you have access to this. And based on OpenAI's release schedule, I cannot imagine if they're showing this and they've already talked about it a month ago, that they're going to wait 6 months to release this. So
Mm.
I'm under the assumption basically any day now, like you're going to go into ChatGPT if you're paying your $20 a month and you're going to have plugins. And then that plugin ecosystem is going to explode. Like when you're going to have hundreds of them or thousands of them by the end of the year, potentially, depending on how much OpenAI pushes the release of these things.
So you gave a really good example of in your own work, this, thing that might take you an hour to do typically, you're able to do in a couple of minutes. Now, there's obvious productivity gains immediately from using this technology, but do those productivity gains over time impact jobs too?
I don't know how they don't. Like, I really don't. And I know we talked about this at length last week, in episode 43 about knowledge work, but I really just don't understand how you could watch something like this and then go watch, like the Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot minute and a half demo or the workspace demo and not arrive at the conclusion that knowledge work jobs are in trouble. Like, we're just not ready for this. And we talked about this. And, in the last episode, if you didn't listen to it, we gave kind of some ways to start moving in a positive direction, like actions you can take to try and avoid this outcome where we lose a bunch of knowledge work jobs in the near term. But again, having talked to a lot of these CEOs, having talked to a lot of, the investors who, are pushing for efficiency within organizations. And when you look at the real world applications, once you can do this stuff, I really just don't see a scenario where it doesn't have an impact. Um, so again, I'm very optimistic long term about the impact of AI. I think it's going to do amazing things for the workplace, for businesses, for society. But I think we got to be very realistic that this is very tangible technology that is going to be infused into our daily workflows and processes, whether we want it or not, by the end of the year in most industries and in most companies. And let's be real, like they're not ready. Like most enterprises are just not even close to being ready for what this stuff's going to enable. So again, yeah, it's like our whole call to action last week was you got to accept this and take action. Like you cannot just pretend like it's not going to transform knowledge work. It is.
Mm.
And I don't even know how you debate that. Like, I don't know if I said this last week, but somebody actually called it a clown shoes opinion, like replied to my LinkedIn thing with, and I was like, that's great. Like that's very productive way to think about this. Like, good luck. Like if that's what you actually think. And that was like, I could sit here and listen to a very real argument of like a 5 to 10x productivity in some roles and in some industries where you could see a massive, massive transformation. I was just making the argument like maybe it's like 20 to 30%. Like,
Mm.
but even that is transformational in most organizations. 5 to 10x is really, really hard to comprehend. And maybe that isn't what you get to. Like you don't get 5 10x in every profession and in every industry, but it, it it's hard to argue you won't in some, like coding. Like it
Mhm.
seems absolutely doable within coding. And I think writing is another one where it's going to be, 20 to 30%. I feel it's an insanely conservative estimate for the efficiency that can be gained in writing
Mm.
for internal, external communications and things like that. Um, but we'll see. I mean, I just still encourage people. I think it's way safer right now to move forward under the assumption that knowledge work is going to be transformed in the very near future than to pretend like it's not and be wrong 6 months from now. Then you're gonna be in trouble. Like I think it'd just be way better to watch this demo, go look at other real world demos, figure it out for yourself, come to that conclusion on your own. But I think it's really important that people accept this tech is going to be with us very soon.